So the purpose of this session is just to really launch into Mentoring Day. I think you actually got a really good version of how important mentoring is to the NIH and to the endeavor of science, listening to Dr. Thornton. I actually counted, I think she said, used the word mentoring 22 times in her conversation. And she also said that you have a mentoring plan all ready for you, which is true. It was a huge part of our application. Our 1,500 page application included hundreds of pages from people talking about their mentoring expertise in order to be able to fulfill the goal of our program of having a lot of mentors in place for you. You're actually, our mentoring plan, Tom will talk, Dr. Keller will talk more about it later. Our mentoring plan is actually, includes over the time you're in our program, 3 different types of mentors that you'll have. And so it's a very, it's actually a complex mentoring plan, I think, compared to many of the other BUILD sites. But through your time in the program, we're hoping along your pathway that you have peer mentors, which are other students such as yourself, and you yourself will become peer mentors when you're seniors in our program. You will have what we're calling career mentors. They are faculty members at whatever institution you're at, all of our BUILD sites. As you transfer, if you're at a community college, as you transfer to PSU, then you get a new faculty mentor at whatever institution you're at. So they're in place all the way through your program. And then once you're placed in your research mentoring position, you actually will have a research mentor. So there's a lot of mentors that we're going to be providing for you as a part of the program. So in order to kind of get an idea of how mentoring intersects with career in science, and also to give you a chance to just sort of hear from somebody about their own pathway in science, I have a guest speaker. So my guest speaker is Dr. Marguerite Matthews. She is a postdoctoral fellow at OHSU. She works in the Damien Fair lab, that group, which I know you've heard a little bit about this week. I'm going to let her say what her research focus is. And then I've asked her to talk a little bit about her career pathway and also just her mentoring pathway.
Thank you all so much for listening in advance. I'm going to try to go through these somewhat quickly, but just to give you a bigger appreciation for how mentoring has helped me. And it will look different for everyone, but I think this really just hopefully will show the importance of mentoring, having mentoring relationships, both in having people who are helping you get to the next stage, but also for you realizing the importance of also mentoring other people. So many of you are probably already mentors and have been mentored for someone, and it should be a lifelong thing. The people may change, but you should always be in a mentoring relationship. And I have to say, I don't think I would have a PhD if it hadn't been for my mentors. It wasn't part of my plan. When I was in high school, I probably thought I'll get a college degree, I'll get married, I'll have kids, I have a job, that when I start it right after college, I'll have it until I retire. And that is not how it went at all. And I think I'm a little grateful for that. So I did start doing research in high school. It was my junior year, I was taking a chemistry class, and my high school chemistry teacher took me aside and said, I want you to apply for this research program. And when he said the word research, I just thought kind of Dexter's Laboratory sort of thing. And Einstein, like those are the 2 scientists that I know, and Bill Nye. But white guys, that's what I thought that a scientist was, so I immediately kind of was like, here we go. And he said it's for underrepresented minorities in San Diego. You should apply, I think you'd be really good for it. And even though I had no interest in it at all, I respected him as a teacher. I thought he was amazing. And if he said this is something that I should do it. So I applied, I got into it, and this is where I got to work for a summer. Beautiful, right? And so this is actually an IKEA commercial, I think, that I've seen on TV. And there's a car that kind of drives around here. But this is the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. Out here is the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. And this, if you're looking from the ocean view, this is kind of what you see. It's like one of those like infinity sort of pool kind of thing. There's this lunch area, and this is where I used to eat lunch almost every day. And I got a chance to do some really cool research in neuroscience, and I had an amazing mentor. Her name was Henriette. She was a staff scientist in the Fred Gage lab. And I didn't know at the time, but Fred Gage is known all throughout neuroscience. He's considered one of the godfathers, grandfathers of neuroscience. Has did some really cool research. I didn't know at the time. I was like, I'm getting paid to be at this really beautiful place. Why not see what happens? But it turned out to be a very pivotal moment in my life. And this picture was taken a year ago. So Henriette, as a high school student, was my first research mentor, and she's now not only still a mentor, but a friend. As you can see from this selfie, we look pretty happy. She's been in my life ever since I started doing research in her lab. And having her as a female mentor was really important for me to see her trajectory, hear about her, the work that she was doing, and just seeing her own career progression. She's now at the National Institutes of Aging. She has a lab there. And one really great thing about her, not only showing me how to do research, kind of giving me a lay of the land of what it's like to work with animals, what it's like to work with tissue, what it's like to put together a research project. But as I started progressing in my own research career, she invited me to give a talk at the National Institutes of Aging. And for me, that was really important because as a scientist, you're supposed to communicate your science. And she had enough faith in me, even just the brief exchanges of communication we've had over the years. She knew that I was someone who she wanted to introduce to other people. So she invited me to give a talk. She had flyers all around this place. I don't do aging work. At the time, I was doing adolescent brain development work in rats. And she invited me to the National Institutes of Aging on the other side of the life spectrum, but simply because she wanted to give me that exposure and give me a chance to practice my research. So we've had a really long relationship, but she was kind of my first research mentor, so to speak, and I've kept in touch with her, and I will be joining her out in Maryland soon to work at the National Institutes of Health. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing her. She's like, let me know if you need a place to stay. You can come stay with me. So mentorships can turn into friendships. They can be lifelong. Just like they say about friendships, there's a reason, a season, and a lifetime. It's kind of the same with mentoring. And I'll also say she helped me win the science fairs that I was entered into in San Diego and California. I won first place. Thank you very much. But more than the prestige of saying I got first place, I got a lot of money for college. So that was really, really awesome that she was part of that. And she also actually drove down from Maryland to Pittsburgh for my PhD defense. So I'm just truly grateful for having her in my life. So next, I went to college after high school. I went to Spelman College, a small liberal arts college in Atlanta, Georgia. I studied biochemistry. I didn't want to study biology, which is the closest thing to neuroscience, because I didn't want to take botany. I thought studying plants sounds really, really boring. So I studied biochemistry instead, which was close. And I'll just go ahead and skip and talk to you about one of my favorite mentors from Spelman. His name is Dr. Demanja. Funny thing about him is I never had him as a professor. He wasn't even my research mentor, but he was someone I went to see almost every single day. He showed an investment in me. We talked in the hall one day. I told him kind of what I wanted to do with life, and he was like, you're a stunner. I can tell you're going to be very successful. And just because his belief in me based on one conversation, that really fueled me to continue to do whatever it is that I needed to do. When I applied for fellowships and scholarships and internships over the summer, he was the one to write recommendation letters for me, to look over my statements of purpose, even tried to get me to work at the CDC in Atlanta after I graduated. Was really sad that I didn't stay in chemistry, that I went more into neuroscience. But he was just very encouraging of me, and so I always looked to him just for advice. And sometimes I would just go sit in his chair in his office and just like let out everything that I needed to let out, but always very supportive of me, making sure that I was doing what I needed to do. Was hard on me. If I wasn't doing well in class, he let me know. But this is also another picture that was just taken last year. So someone who I continue to keep in touch with, who is very important in my trajectory. I think I would have graduated college without him, but I don't think I would have been as happy with the results if he hadn't have been there. And so even to this day, he still calls me a stunner. And so whenever I tell him good news about something that's happened, he's like, of course, you're a stunner. That's what you're supposed to do. So then I went on to graduate school. I thought I was going to get an MD actually in college. I was pre-med, pre-health. And I went on a few medical school interviews, and I decided I hated it. I thought it was just going to be a bad choice. Didn't know what I was going to do, and somehow ended up going and getting a PhD instead. But I had the research background for it, so it all kind of made sense. This is a lovely campus on a fall day. And this was my mentor. As you can see, I love her because she has 3 pictures, and I have many more on my phone. But Beta, I will say, is probably one of my favorite people in the world because not only did she help make me a really strong scientist, but she also really encouraged me to not let stereotypes or prejudices or any of the barriers that hold many people, women, people of color, back. Not in a, well, you're a person, so you can do anything, but really, yes, you're a woman, yes, you're a black woman, but you have to continue to push things further. Men do it all the time, you should do it. You know, white men, old white men do this all the time, you can do it too. And you know, it's funny because she's a very small, petite woman, but she's a firecracker and she does not play. And I really learned to be, to advocate for myself and really to put myself first, make myself a priority. And sometimes that people think that is being selfish. They call you names. I've heard women scientists referred to as the B word, oftentimes because they are assertive in what they want. And my favorite quote from Beta is, "It doesn't matter what people say about you as long as you get what you want." And that is very, yes. And I don't think that we are told enough, and this really goes for anybody, but we, especially women, I mean, statistics show we often don't apply for jobs because we think we're underqualified. We often don't advocate for ourselves in negotiations, whether it be for salary or anything else that we want, because we feel we don't deserve it. And I learned that I do deserve it, and if nothing else, I should ask for it and see what happens. So she has been really awesome. Again, all of these pictures were taken within the last year. She's kind of, I wouldn't say she's a friend. She feels more like a mom to me. And even my mom are good friends with my mentor, but she's actually going to be the new chair of the department at OHSU for behavioral neuroscience. And I remember her interviewing for it, and she asked me, "Do you think I should take the job?" And I was like, "You're asking me? Me? I don't know. Like, you're amazing. You can do whatever you want." But that is really goes to show the type of relationship that we have, that even though she's a mentor, the person who helped me get a PhD, she also is someone who values my opinion and sees me as a colleague, sees me as a trusted friend. This is me in her house, us at a conference, and when she was recently at OHSU for an interview. So just to say that these relationships can be very meaningful, and you should get what you need out of it. You should always constantly, your mentor should be pushing you, challenging you, but it's also okay to sometimes get other things from them. Maybe, you know, it's not just a research mentor, someone who you don't really know, but someone who's telling you, you should do this, or this is how you can navigate these different obstacles. You want people in your life who are going to push you to be better, but also help you to get there and give you some tools to get to the next step. So last but not least, I'm currently at OHSU doing work in the neuroimaging lab. I can talk to you about the boring stuff that I do on the computer all day later. And this is my mentor. He's a cool guy, looks like a basketball player, tall, and most people do think he's a basketball player. Which is kind of nice when you go out for happy hour. You get good treatment when they think you play for the Trailblazers. But this is also someone who's really helped me, I wouldn't say just train me in research, but also giving me the opportunity to explore new things, to be able to work with EXITO and work with some other programs that are really important to me, particularly around issues of diversity and inclusion in research. And not everyone that I've encountered is that open, and I've had the opportunity to have mentors who've really given me freedom to explore new things, to really figure out what I want to do with my career. And one thing that I can take away from Damien, who I've been working with for 4 years, is just get it done. That's what he always says. If I say something is really hard, just get it done. If it's, oh my God, you want this by tomorrow, just get it done. And I've taken that approach. Sometimes you just have to get things done. And I'm the type of person who will hold on to something for a long time. If it's a manuscript, I'll stare at it for weeks and weeks and weeks, not put anything on the paper. And he's like, just send me the manuscript. Like, I'm going to change it anyway. So just send it to me. It's not going to get better if you just stare at it all day, every day. So I've been a little more proactive and just kind of turning things around. So I've really grown with all these different people that I've had a chance to work with. Again, Damien, someone I considered kind of a friend, someone who I can talk to about things not directly related to research, but also very much research. Like, if this is what I need to get, this experiment that I need to do, this analysis, if he doesn't know, he puts me in touch with somebody who does know. He's always introducing me to other people. If he goes to a meeting with a vice provost at OHSU, you can best believe I'm sitting right next to him. He's putting me in charge of the meeting, letting me lead the meeting, really putting me out in the forefront, which is why I've been, I think, so successful in my postdoc, because I have someone who believes in me. And I will tell you, if it hadn't been for him and other mentors that I have pushing me and kind of forcing me to put myself out there, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't be the firecracker that my mentor Beta is, because I would just think, oh, I can't, you know, I don't know what to say in front of the vice provost of research, or I don't know what to say in front of the president of a university. I don't want to do that, and he will force me to do it, and I won't have much of a choice. But then there are people around campus who know who I am. I'm not just some postdoc, but I am Marguerite, who works on X program, works on this, and we should get her to do more stuff. So this is essentially my journey to getting a PhD, and hopefully you will recognize the importance in your mentors. You might not always like the mentors that you get assigned, but there's something to be gained there. So if, you know, I would say make the relationship work to the best of your advantage, but also sometimes mentors aren't the ones that you pick, they kind of pick you, and really just, you know, continue to cultivate those relationships and make it work for you. If you don't see yourself improving, find someone else. It doesn't always have to be someone directly in your area. If you're a community health person, there might be a physics professor out there who's just dying to take you under their wing and help you to just get it done. So thank you.
So let's see, I wanted you guys to have time to ask questions for Marguerite, but I don't think we're going to make it there because we have just a few minutes here to get through the rest of our presentation, and if I can find where my slides are. So just really quickly, I wanted to give you a quick list of just sort of the types of things that mentors worked on with students this past year. So I think sometimes it's helpful to see sort of a list like this, because it gives you an idea of some of the things that you might ask for help on. It's always nice to have sort of a place to start relationships. And you'll hear a lot more about this afternoon, because we'll have a panel of scholars that will talk about their mentoring relationships. But some of the things we're identifying and honing research interests, so really connecting the dots between things that you right now are thinking about with your elevator speech, and really what that means in terms of career, or even just what your degree pathway is in your institution. They work a lot on career exploration and networking. A lot of scholars, I think last year I talked to a lot of scholars. Some scholars seem to have a pathway that they knew about from the time they were in middle school. They wanted to be, a cancer biologist. A lot of you are really just thinking, you're scientists and you're inquisitive and you have a lot of things you're interested in, but you're really now thinking about those things. So don't let that worry you. Our mentors are great at sort of being the people that can help you sort of explore careers and do networking. A lot of our faculty mentors this year set up informational interviews, literally kind of connecting our students with colleagues and giving them, questions, and actually going out and interviewing people about careers and their pathway. And so that's actually been really helpful, and that's certainly something that our mentors can help you with. Scholarly communication, that's taken the form of everything, helping with your elevator speech, helping with personal statements, helping get you ready to apply for things. Strategic planning and timelines. Timelines are always a good place to start with any mentor. If you have nothing else that you can think of when you go to see a mentor, have them work on timelines. Timelines for transfer, timelines for graduate school, thinking ahead, timelines for everything are really helpful. Writing letters of recommendation. I mean, all of you, I don't know if it was easy or hard, but all of you really went out and got those letters of recommendation for this application process. That can be really difficult. We want to have, one of the great things about having mentors is they can be your pool for these letters of recommendation moving forward. Scholarships and fellowships, identifying opportunities was a big one this year. Time management was a huge one. General advice and support around personal and family issues, campus community resources, and accessing those kinds of things. So there's a lot. So we're going to skip that. So the next set of slides, and I'm sorry, I'm going to just talk as fast as I can to get through some of this. But the next set of slides was really about getting the most out of mentoring relationships. And so these are my top 4 tips, but I think you guys can probably think of some more. So my first one is come with questions. And honestly, I think you guys have actually been the question masters all week. I think you've actually learned pretty quickly from sitting in this room too that scientists love questions. Always having a few questions in your pocket is always a really good thing to do. You'll notice that I actually prepared this slide very quickly because I'm filling in for the session. Because Tom Keller was going to do it. And he's in the NIH site visit. But actually, the first couple questions on here are your questions. So it's an easy slide to make. You guys often started your questions with saying, you had thought about what they said. So the way to kind of think about what someone says when you're going to meet a scientist or a faculty member is just look them up. All this stuff is online. There's all this stuff about their lab. All the stuff about the research they do. Take a few minutes, look it up, and just think ahead of time of a couple questions you want to ask. So you guys, a lot of you started your questions just like this. And what's next for you with regards to your research is one of your questions. That's a great question to always ask a researcher. A great one to have in your pocket. How did your research evolve over time is another one of your questions that you guys have been asking all week. That's an incredibly great question. But then there's also, you can always ask questions about their own academic and career pathway. So if you just come with questions, scientists will always, and faculty members will always respond to that because they see the spark in interest. I think there's a tendency for all of us to think that what they expect to have is sort of someone comes to the door who knows a huge amount, has this huge, gigantic knowledge base. But actually, scientists and mentors think that they actually know that they can impart, and they expect to be able to impart the skills and the knowledge. What they actually look for is not for necessarily someone to come through the door with a whole lot of polish and really knowing everything about neurobiology. They really want people to come through that have that spark and that interest. So coming with the questions is actually what works more even sometimes than really preparing background. And it's always good. I mean, you'll certainly get used to that, but just there's also most researchers, well, all researchers have papers, so you can always read a paper. Or just read the abstract of a couple of their papers. And then that you can just start any sentence with a little bit of context and then just go from there. So this goes without saying, but practice the highest standards of professionalism and communication. These are simple things, but always letting your mentors know in advance if you will be late or miss a meeting. I think a lot of times we don't do that only because we're shy. It's really can be intimidating to reach out to faculty members. But just do. Let them know in advance. If you're busy with finals and it's possible to meet, a lot of really good practice is just to send an email. Just a few sentence email that says, these are some things that we talked about at our last meeting, and I'm working on these goals. And so that actually works wonders. People really like that. If you're asking for a letter of recommendation, let them know in advance. Give them even a recommendation packet. Which could just be information about what you're actually asking them to do the recommendation for, when it's due, and those kinds of things. And maybe even some things that you would like them to highlight in your recommendation, you know, projects that you've worked on, things that they have all the information about you handy. Always start and err on the side of formal. So in college or university, just call everyone professor, call everyone doctor. Don't worry too much about it. Just use the professional title, and they can correct you. But you know, I always just kind of go for formal, and then everything becomes less formal really quickly. I don't know if we have. I can provide you guys with slides, or we can even do a little webinar that we distribute that has some of this information. But here's a quick case study. Let's see how we're doing on time. Maybe I can actually do it. So, let's see. I want to give you guys time for a break too. I think I'm good. I'll just talk really fast. So here's a case study. So Jen, a scholar in the EXITO program, has just learned the name of her faculty career mentor. She is excited to launch the relationship and schedule the first meeting. She reaches out to her career mentor through the following email. So, hi Kay Logan. Thanks so much for being willing to meet with me. I am so excited to have you as a mentor. I know I can learn a lot about how to be a success from you, so thanks. A bit about me, I'm currently a bio major and am a sophomore. I love to study a lot of different things, and I'm excited to get some help from with my future career plans. When can we meet? I'm pretty flexible besides work and school, so just let me know. Sincerely, Jen. So this is a case study. So what do you guys think about that email? I mean, I can start off by saying one thing. The tone is certainly warm. Right, so there's some good stuff on tone, but what else did you immediately notice?
When she said that she was flexible besides blank, she didn't give specific times, so
Yep.
she's extending the email by an extra email because they have to have that communication. Oh, when are you actually available? Oh, I'm available here. Oh, I'm available here. Okay, yes.
Right, so she's extending the email. You need more emails to get this scheduled. That is absolutely true. Yes, it's informal. That's true. That's right. Yes, I will. Yeah, go right ahead.
The subject line is very informative.
Subject line, not informative. So I'll just kind of do this rapid fire.
I thought this was very welcoming and thankful before I even made it into the.
Yes, welcoming and thankful. Actually, I think it does have some marks for tone, right? Because editing for tone is actually important, and it is enthusiastic. There's no question. If I got this email and I were a faculty member, I'd say, well, it's enthusiastic. Go right ahead.
I thought it was very casual. It was very nice, but it was just too casual and also very formal. It just is for first frequency. The last thing that usually people supposed to give them their email or
Right. Absolutely. The signature line does not have her contact information or even her last name. So, so it's missing that important piece. Right ahead. Right, and so there's a vagueness to it. And there's actually a sort of trick to being vague, and still, because a lot of you don't know for sure what you're interested in, and your interests are going to change. And so there's a sort of trick to being vague. These are some things, you can even say, these are some things I'm interested in right now. And that's fine, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to just keep going. Yeah, didn't address as a doctor or professor, but there's an exclamation point, so I got an exclamation point, so I'm happy about that. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think that actually is a pretty good summary of the things that are going to be on the next slide. So here's our first email checklist. And you know, it seems like some of this stuff is self-evident, but honestly, it's actually really helpful to do this because we all write emails very quickly. And I actually have to make myself slow down occasionally and actually remind myself of these exact same steps on all the emails that I do. So specific subject line, as specific as you can make it, that's great. Sometimes if I know for sure and it's appropriate and I know it's an action required, I'll say action required, you know, or for this one you could say something like build, because the person doesn't know you. So give them as much context as you can and make it quick. So BUILD EXITO Scholar hoping to set up mentoring appointment right in the subject line, right? And they can just scroll down. They don't even have to open the email. It's like, oh, that's what this is. Professional salutation, dear professor or doctor, is great. First sentence stating the purpose of the email. So I am writing to schedule an appointment, right? Is great. For scheduling, include multiple options for time and place, 3 possible times, 2 places is what I usually say. And that's exactly over here. You want to avoid email back and forth. Anything you can do to keep that from happening, just that horrible boomeranging effect, is great. I also include what to do if those don't work out. So my default for faculty members is always saying, or if you have office hours, when are those? And maybe I could try and schedule during that time. Include a short self-introduction if it's appropriate. Sometimes if it's going to be a long bio, I will actually say, if you have a bio, I'll actually say my bio is at the bottom of the email. And then you can actually put some of that below, where the scheduling stuff is. And then they can actually look down and they say, oh, there's their whole bio. And they'll take time to read it. Or a couple sentences are fine too. Or I'm closing with an electronic signature, including contact information is really good. And proofreading prior to sending. So check spelling, tone, clarity. Those things will get you through a lot of emails, I think. Here's some examples of electronic signatures. I took these from a peer mentor last year. You can use your electronic signature to do a little bit of subtle branding. And so these are actually kind of sweet because she has different ones that she uses in different contexts. So when she was looking for professional things on campus that have to do with science, she was using the one over here. And the one on the right is something that she's been using a little bit now because she's doing some writing and getting a writing fellowship, actually I think at Cambridge or something. So those are really, it's kind of great. She actually brands herself. It's really subtle, but that kind of subtle branding I think is actually really great. Something we'll probably be working on over the year in some of the enrichment sessions with you guys is creating sort of a presence for yourself. And also, maybe getting up a website. So we have some platforms we use here at PSU where you create a little personal website. It's an e-portfolio really where you can actually put up things that you've accomplished. So that's what that link is to. So my next tip was just owning your path, setting your own goals, and then coming to the meeting prepared. This is actually a really important tip. So I have 5 minutes, and I'm just going to talk even faster. Just coming to the meeting ahead of time, just have a couple goals. It doesn't have to be an elaborate meeting plan, and I think that is actually why it doesn't get done a lot, is because it can be so intimidating sometimes, especially when you first start meeting with a faculty member, that you actually don't think to yourself, oh, actually just having 2 goals or even 1 goal gives you a place to get started. What can mentors help you do? They can help you with your goals. So you don't really have to, you just have to give them enough to get them started. So if you don't, there's a way of being sort of even confused or uncertain about what to do or what to do next that actually gives them something to work with. And so that's, just give them something, a place to start. And then refer back to goals. If for instance it's finals, you're not going to be able to meet with your faculty mentor that month, it is actually okay to just send them an email that's just an update. These are the goals we talked about last time. This is what I've done, those kinds of things. They love that. So let's see, here's just about owning your own path. This is just a little quote that I threw in, but I think it's actually important. Because being yourself, every single person in here has a unique perspective. And that is actually the most valuable thing in the scientific endeavor. And I honestly have to say, sometimes when you're thrown into big institutions and big research opportunities and things like that, you can lose track of that. It's easy to feel the pressures and to lose track of this important thing. But the people that I've seen in the end be most successful in science and the happiest in science have all been people that didn't lose this thread, even if it meant sometimes fighting for something. I had a professor when I was in graduate school who was a mountain climber and a scientist, right? And he kept those 2 things as part of his personality. He was a much happier scientist than some of the scientists I know who just did nothing, but really just at the bench day in and day out. So just be yourself because everybody else is already taken. And then also having a periodic mentoring check-in and reflection. It's really good to revisit goals, but it's also really good occasionally, every 3 months, just answer those questions. I really appreciated hearing from you about this. Helped me to, and throw those into the conversation. Your mentors will love it. That will actually really make it, the whole endeavor, meaningful for them. And then this last part is actually I can do in 3 minutes. So as part of this program with all of you, one of the ways that we keep track of what's going on with all these mentoring relationships, but also what's going on in the program, is we ask you to log your experiences every month. The way we do that is through something we call the EXITO Mentoring Support Network. You actually will get, it's very straightforward. It's really just a logging system. Your mentors don't see, they submit logs too, but they don't see your logs and you don't see their logs. So it's a place where everybody can just sort of share what's going on. It's also a place where a few years from now, you can actually look back at your logs and you can say, oh yeah, I remember when I was just starting out in EXITO, these are the kinds of things that I worked on. And also when you become a mentor, when you're seniors and you're mentoring a new EXITO scholar, you'll be like, oh, I remember that informational interview exercise that I did made all the difference. So it's a wonderful thing, but it's actually pretty important to us, and we do sort of view it as a requirement of the program. It shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes. It's pretty straightforward. So you'll actually get an email that tells you all the information every month. It'll look like it's coming from me. It's sort of automated. The next reminder, it'll be so nagging. So you'll definitely know my name. The next email is there's kind of a subtle reminder, then a less subtle reminder, and then after that it actually really will be probably a personal email from me. So we nag you a lot about it, so I'll apologize in advance. This is what it looks like. There's a landing page that has some information on it. It's really straightforward. Your logs will be there every time you log in. I will be sending you'll be getting your first log after this, probably next week, to talk about what went on this week. And that's the end. So I wanted to end on this slide because I find this kind of powerful. So this is a quote from Julie Frischlag, Dr. Julie Frischlag, and she's actually the head of surgery at Johns Hopkins, which is actually arguably the most prestigious position you could probably almost have in medicine. It is really the top of one of the most competitive possible fields you can have. Here's the woman who is in charge of this, who is just at the top of her game, and the quote is, "I don't feel like I fit in." So what I take from this quote is that all of us have doubts. All of us will have something called imposter syndrome at times during our academic careers, where you just doubt yourself, or you just feel like you don't. Everybody else has the answer to what it is that they're doing, and you're not sure. So everybody feels like this, even people who are really at the top of their game. So she was saying that to her mentor, who also is a boss, I think, in this context. And the response that her boss gave, I think, is also great. Your job isn't to fit in, your job is to lead. So there's something to take from that. So that's it.